What's up, everyone? Happy Monday. It is Smash time here on Warchant TV. I'm Ben Spicer. He's Ira Schoffel. I'm filling in for Tom Lang. He's a little under the weather. Our guy, Jeff Cameron, he's out on vacation. So you guys get me tonight. Exciting stuff, Ira. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing, Ben? Glad to have you.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We're going to talk a little baseball here on the show, and then we're going to have Michael Langston joining us coming up here about 7:20, 7:30 or so to talk a little recruiting. But Ira, Florida State, they are into the Super Regionals. You had the chance to see them over the weekend. I was there as well, taking some photos. Big wins over Stetson. They got 2 wins over UCF as well to advance to the Super Regional. Still not sure who they're going to be playing just yet. Either Oklahoma or UConn. That game will take place tonight at 9 p.m. But just initial thoughts on the baseball team and getting a chance to advance to the Super Regional.
Yeah, man, it was an awesome weekend. I mean, I thought everything about it went really well for Florida State. I mean, I don't think that Link Jarrett could have kind of coordinated or scripted out the pitching situation to work any better. You know, you got a huge game from Carson Dorsey in the opener, almost basically a complete game, 8 2/3 innings. He probably couple more pitches probably could have got the complete game, but they didn't want to go too far over 120, and because he had thrown some last week. Then obviously Jamie Arnold was electric. The offense did just enough, and then you have the one big inning on Sunday after Connor Winokur pitches the first 4+ innings. So really everything worked out really well for them. They didn't have to use many of their bullpen arms. I really thought Brendan Oxford was awesome coming in to close the first 2 games. And then they got good efforts from those other guys, but they were already up by 7, 8 runs. So they didn't have to be great. And they turned out they were. So, yeah, man, it couldn't have gone any better. Now they'll find out, like you said, tonight, UConn or Oklahoma, who they got to play in the Super Regionals.
You mentioned the bullpen. I took the liberty of looking up some stats here. So this is the key stat to me. So in the 3 games, the bullpen came in. They pitched 7 1/3 innings, giving up just 2 earned runs total on 34 batters faced. Struck out 11 batters while walking just 3, and gave up only 5 hits. Ira, is that encouraging to see for you moving forward here in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it is. I'm not going to get too carried away with how the bullpen did, though, because it really wasn't a lot of guys in high leverage situations. You know, Brennan Oxford was, ostensibly he had pitched those last 2 innings of a pretty competitive game, in against UCF the first time around. But when those other guys came in the for the most part. Now I thought Connor Holtz pitched really well. The game was in the balance for him. He pitched 3 strong innings. But the couple of guys that came into the end, the game was kind of already in hand. So there's probably they're to win a super regional, to go far in Omaha, they're going to have to probably call on a couple other guys in high leverage situations. And so I don't know that we could say that they've definitely solved their concerns or allayed their concerns. But it was, it couldn't have gone any better in the first weekend.
Another interesting tidbit that stood out to me, Florida State only won the hits battle in the 5-2 win over UCF on Saturday. They out-hit the Knights 12-4, I believe, in that game. Stetson actually out-hit them Friday 9-7. They tied with UCF in hits yesterday with 7 each. However, where they made up for it, Ira, was in walks. They totaled 20 over that 3-game span, including 10 yesterday in the 12-4 win. So they're finding a way to manufacture offense. I think they had 4 or 5 home runs in those 3 games as well. But it's nice to see the patience, and I think that's going to be another big key moving forward too for them.
Yeah, I thought that was big in the big inning that they had in the 5th inning, because in the first 4 innings, the kid starting for UCF was talented, really talented pitcher, but he hadn't thrown much all season. He was dealing with a back injury during the season, and basically, I think UCF's coaches just rolled the dice and said, "This kid's got great stuff. Let's see what he can do." And he was not very. He did not have great command. I mean, for most of his time, I'm not sure where he ended up, but throughout most of his 3 or 4 innings, he had thrown more balls than strikes, and even there, I thought Florida State was probably a little overly aggressive at times. I think they could have probably taken more walks earlier, but in the big inning, yeah, man, they had 5 hits and 5 walks. I think in the 9-run 5th, and I think that was huge. And I think Link Jarrett said last night that he probably could count on one hand the good at bats in the first 4 innings. I think he thought they were a little over aggressive too, but again, I think some of that's just a lot of these guys have never been on that stage. And they're just trying so badly to make something happen. So, I mean, I think it's a great teaching moment for Link Jarrett and his staff to say, look, when you guys got more selective and waited for your pitch, look how much better the offense looked.
Now we kind of talked a little bit about the positives or things that kind of stood out, but I know one thing that people are concerned about in the chat, and maybe we're a little concerned about too, the ACC Player of the Year, James Tibbs, struggled a little bit over those 3 games. Is that a cause of concern for you, and what's kind of your expectation for him moving forward? I think we might have lost you there, Ira. All right. Well, hopefully Ira will rejoin us here soon. You guys saw on the screen there. This is going to be a heavy question-driven show. So, oh, there you go. You're back with us, Ira.
Yeah, man, I lost you for a second. Sorry about that.
I don't know if you caught the end of that, but just talking about James Tibbs, kind of what you want to see from him moving forward, and are you concerned at all?
Yeah, no, I was I thought that UCF had a really good approach with Tibbs, and really Stetson did too. I think that teams know what he can do. They're not going to give him a lot of fastballs, and so UCF particularly threw a lot of breaking balls, a lot of them breaking down out of the zone. And again, he's one of those guys that Tibbs is a professional hitter. He's usually does a great job of looking for the pitches he can drive, not just forcing things. But I think he was getting frustrated that he wasn't getting anything to hit. I mean, they were throughout the weekend, both Stetson and UCF were very content to let James Tibbs draw walks if he wanted to. I think he walked 4 times in one of the games. And so he, I think as the weekend went on, really wanted to make something happen. Again, with the best intentions, trying to do something for his team. But, he chased a lot of pitches out of the zone and it, really kind of hurt him. I think this week will be good for him to realize to sit back and look at how those teams pitched him and make the adjustment. I think he will, because he's too smart of a hitter to have 2 weekends in a row like that.
I like this comment from James B. Our highest scoring games in that regional was from putting several base hits together. Maybe this team, especially Max, is starting to realize you don't have to swing for the fences every plate appearance. And kind of to that point, it's not really about the total number of hits, but the timeliness of the hits. And that's what we saw throughout that 3-game span in the NCAA regional. I thought Ira from FSU just coming through when it mattered the most and being able to, put together those big innings like the 9-run inning that we saw yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm probably more along the lines of James than maybe some of the batters, maybe because we're a little bit older. But this team, it's kind of a weird situation. I was talking to Corey about it during the game. This team hits for power. They have a bunch of dudes who hit for power on this team up and down the lineup, and so that's what they are. So when you're that aggressive at the plate, you're going to have some empty at bats. You're going to have some situations where you maybe you don't move the runner, you don't get good contact in a situation where you just need to put the ball in play. And again, that's kind of an old school approach. Now, a lot of times guys are just, really just trying to mash, and they've got guys who can do that. And when it works great. And again, like that 5th inning where you get the 3-run bomb from Max Williams, you get the 2-run homer from Cam Smith. I mean, those are game-changing plays, so I get it. But I also see where James B is talking about is there were several situations, again, early in that game where, maybe you just tone it down a little bit, just try to make some good contact, maybe go the opposite way and get an inning going. But that's kind of who this team is, man. They are I don't want to say feast or famine. They're generally a feast offense, and I think that that's what they want to keep doing.
We mentioned we want to be very question-driven on Monday Smash tonight. Monday Smash, by the way, presented by State Farm agent Russ Forhis. Russ, you can find his website at russforhis.com. 2 store locations in Jacksonville Beach and Orange Park. For those listening on the podcast, you can reach him at the Jacksonville location, area code 904-834-4282, and at Orange Park, 904-276-9535. I like this question from Garrett. This is going to be a tough one, I think, Ira. Is it safe to say Link had a more impressive turnaround than Norvell did with the football team?
I mean, if you're talking about a 1 year, then sure. But I don't think you'd say overall. I mean, again, Link, they've had a great year. And, we'll see how far it goes. I mean, I think if you're just looking at 13-0 from last season in football versus, and should have been in the playoff versus in an ACC championship versus where Florida State baseball is right now, I think 13-0 is more impressive. Even if you felt they should have gotten left out, which they shouldn't have, they would have been 5th in the country. And, FSU baseball is not quite at that level yet. But I think it's apples to oranges, right? I mean, I think it's much easier to flip a baseball roster than it is to flip a football roster. Basically, if you look at the team that played in the last game of the regional for FSU, 6 of the 9 players that hit in the lineup were transfers. First year guys that came in from Alabama or UCF or UNF or whatever. As much transferring as Mike Norvell does, as much rating of the transfer portal as Mike Norvell does, he's not bringing in 70% of his team in any given year. And so it's apples to oranges, but man, they're both super impressive. I think if you're FSU fans, you just got to be thrilled with both. I don't know if you want to worry too much about which one was better than the other.
Phil asks, I will answer this question, Ira. I don't know if you'll be playing it or not, but I will. The College Football 25 video game. I can't wait. I'm super excited for it. I'll take on anyone in the chat that wants to smoke. I'm on PlayStation 5. Ira, I don't know if are you going to be playing College Football 25? You're welcome to come over if you want to run it with me.
Maybe I'll do that. I don't know if I'm springing for myself. I'm not sure I bought a college or a football video game probably since one of the Madden games in the 90s. So probably a little rusty, Ben. But if you want to show me how to do it, I'll come by.
Absolutely. I got you. Jeremy asks, are we planning to have a meet and greet in Dublin the Friday before the game? I don't know if it'll be the Friday, but I imagine we've got something in the works that we will announce soon. You might know a little more than me, but I would imagine we've got something cooking, right?
Yeah, Tom and Gene and Jeff, I think, are working on different things that they'll be announcing as we get closer. Not too close, but not ready to announce yet. But yeah, they're working on it. We'll definitely have some events out there. We've actually had a partnership with the group that kind of puts on the game. We've done some marketing stuff with them, and I know that the one tailgate they're definitely doing with Bjorn Werner is going to be there, the former FSU defensive end, and I know we're going to be involved in that. But then we're going to have some other events that are more Warchant specific as well.
Matt, we are definitely going to make that happen. I'm looking forward to that. And Jack, to answer your question real quickly, and then we'll get into some football questions because we've got some good ones. I've already committed myself. I will be rebuilding Sam Houston State, Bearcat Nation, Ira. I'm ready for that. I'm excited. Another good question for Brett. We've had variations of this question before, but not necessarily phrased this way. Brett says, I'm assuming this year will be running back by committee. What's your best guess as to 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of rushing yardage at the end of the year? That's another tough one. We've got some good questions here tonight.
That's a great question, Brett. Man, I don't know. I'm gonna say Roydell Williams finishes number 1 in rushing yardage, but Lawrence Toafili maybe edges him out in total yardage rushing and receiving. I think Jalen Lucas will be right there in that ballpark. And, it wouldn't shock me if Keziah Holmes or Cam Davis gets, the next tier. I think the top 3 guys in terms of production are going to be the first 3. I think it's going to be Lawrence Toafili, Roydell Williams, and Jalen Lucas. I think everybody else will be fighting for, and they'll get opportunities, but those would be my 3-headed monster going into the season.
I know one player that I was kind of surprised that missed out on the Warchant Top 40. We were going to talk about it, but I didn't fill out a list, so we weren't going to bring that up. Cam Davis did not make the Warchant Top 40, and we're getting ready to come out with 30 through 35, I believe, or 31 through 35. That article is out on Warchant now, but the YouTube video will be coming out soon as well. Brett had a follow-up question with that, piggybacking off his running back question. What about top 4 wide receivers and number of catches this year? You can include tight end and running back if you want to.
Wow, that's going to be tougher. I'm going to say Malik Benson, number 1. I'll say Kentron Portier, number 2. I'll say Kyle Morlock, number 3. And I'll say Lawrence Toafili, number 4. Maybe Hakeem Williams gets in there, but that would be my top 4. I think Malik and Kentron are going to be the top 2 guys. I was a little bit worried about Kentron in the spring, but I think he's going to be available to help them out in the fall.
Garrett says he would love to see a Warchant stream of staff playing NCAA with Jeff as the play-by-play announcer. I like that. Maybe we can coordinate that and make that one happen. That would be fun. Jeffrey Wilcox asked, how's Elijah Moore been looking so far? I'm excited to see him practice. He was a summer enrollee, right? So we haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, that's right. He would have arrived last week and doing some stuff with the team, some of the workouts, but no, we have not seen him yet. We probably won't see him probably a little bit later in the summer. But he's definitely a guy they're hoping maybe can contribute this year, even though a lot of the freshman receivers are not going to contribute. He is 6'4", he's a big, tall, long, athletic kid. We just haven't seen him, and I'm not sure if he's done much other than maybe just some informal stuff with the quarterbacks.
Ira mentioned, or Briley mentioned, that we forgot Ja'Kai Douglas. Where would he come in? Would he be maybe out just right outside that top four?
That's a good question. Now he might be in there. That's a good point, Briley. Maybe. So I'm going to revise it. I'm going to go. Briley's got me reconsidering. Good call, Briley. I'll go Malik Benson. I'm still going to go Kentron. Then I'll go Tofili and Ja'Kai Douglas. That's where I'm going to go. A receiver.
James
And
B.
I'm dropping Akeem down a little bit, James B. Sorry, buddy.
Gotcha. James B. wanted to know, and he's got some replies in the chat. Overwhelming answer is UConn, but I'm curious what you think. Who would you want, UConn or Oklahoma?
I mean, I don't. It looks like UConn's got some pretty good pitching. I would guess you'd want to play UConn. I mean, I haven't studied them. Oklahoma was number 9. I think the number 9 national seed. Florida State was number 8. I think they're 40-20 in that ballpark. Probably played better competition, but UConn's good. I mean, Florida State went up to a UConn regional back in the day. I mean, it's probably 15 years ago. But UConn's had a good, solid baseball program, and I don't think it'll be easy if they win it. But I think you'd rather play them than Oklahoma, I would think.
UConn also has a Coach Speak legend, Jim Moore Jr., coaching
That's
the football
right.
team. So yeah, he's been on there several times. We're gonna have to bring that back here soon. I think we've got some stuff in the works for that. Maybe bring it back over the summer. I've been actually collecting guys as I go, as I see them, have wild press conferences. I've probably been working on it for about a month, so I think we'll have to circle back around soon, bring that back. Tom asks, DJU over under 400 yards rushing on the season.
All right, so if he plays 13, 14, 15 games, somewhere in there, 30, I think he's going to be over that. I think he'll be over that. I think it wouldn't surprise me if he has a game where he has 65 yards rushing. And I think in most games he's going to have some rushing yards. Again, you saw glimpses of it in the spring. I thought one of the coolest things I saw in the spring game was I thought he's got a natural feel for the read option. And I'm not saying he's going to do a lot of that, but I think in 2nd and 2, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, especially in the plus side of the field, I think you're going to see him doing a lot of, it might be quarterback sweep, but I think it also could be some zone read stuff. And I think he's got a good feel for it. Some quarterbacks don't. Like even if they're athletic, they don't have a great feel for when to give and when the defensive end or whatever the key. You lose me again?
Yeah, we lost you there for just a split second, but you came back now. So let me ask you this to kind of build off of Tom's question here. Do you think that he'll have more designed runs than Jordan Travis did last year? I know Jordan, it was kind of maybe a mix of, him scrambling, creating plays, and they didn't have a lot of designed runs for him. So do you think that they'll have more designed runs for DJU than they did Jordan Travis last year?
I think they will. I think they were determined to not run Jordan a lot last year because they just wanted to make sure that he stayed as healthy as possible. I think they felt like they didn't need to run him and they didn't want to take any chances. And so they weren't going to do it unless they had to. And unfortunately, he does it in the North Alabama game and gets hurt. But yeah, no, I think that was by design. And I think you're going to see DJ do it. I mean, DJ's a huge kid, big, strong, physical kid. And he's going to be doing it in different situations. Jordan was, his best runs were going to be coming in open space where he's trying to break off a long run. DJs are going to be a lot more just trying to move the chains, I think. But yeah, you may not see him break off anything more than 15 or 20 yards, but I think he's going to have a lot of big runs for the offense.
All right, I have to compliment you real quick. I greatly appreciate you because you have been carrying us through the show. I appreciate you, brother. We couldn't do it without you. Philip Moore asks, who do you think will be the breakout defensive player this year for FSU?
Oh, you got me?
We got you. You're back.
All right. So they're asking somebody's asking for the breakout defensive player. That's Philip.
Breakout defensive player. Yes.
Question. I mean, I don't know, Philip. You can let me know if this is a cop out or not. But I say Azaria Thomas. I think Azaria Thomas is going to be a superstar. And I mean, he's making play. He made some plays in the spring that were like, wow. And he was impressive, focused, determined kid. I think he's going to have a huge fall. So it's a common answer. A lot of people are going to give you that answer, but if you'll take it, he's the guy. I think he's going to become I think he's going to become a household name this fall.
Briley asked another good question. If DJU went down mid-season, say after 4 games, is it fair to say that our offense will still be all right given the anticipated increase in run dependence and play action shot plays?
It could be. It could be. I mean, those are definitely positives that they've got going for them. That would give you a chance, whether it was, Luke Rummenhock or Brock Glenn, where they could probably run the offense. And as you said, the running game should be in effect. I think it's a little bit different than what happened late last year. If you remember when Jordan got hurt, I guess Tate Rodemaker's big game down in Gainesville, they had terrible field position in that game, and also the receivers were not very high. So I think it was kind of a perfect storm. I think the offense would be able to function. Where'd you lose me, Ben?
The offense would be able to function.
I think the offense would be able to function. I don't think you could say it would be okay. I think that's probably overstating it a little bit. I think they could, they'll be able to run an offense better than it looked at the end of last season. But I think DJU's a huge upgrade. I think from anything else they have. I think he's the difference between what I would have thought maybe as a 8-win team and a team that maybe can win 11 or 12 games. I think DJ's a big difference for this offense.
Flipping over to the offensive side of the ball, Young Bleak asks, who needs to step up on offense right now, maybe for you to feel good about making the playoffs? Now, remember, it goes from 4 teams to 12 teams this year, so just keep that in mind. But who needs to step up maybe offensively for you to feel good about FSU making the playoffs?
I mean, definitely the receivers, man. I think that if the receivers play well, I think this offense is going to be very good. I think DJ is going to play well. The offensive line is going to be improved. I really believe that they're going to be better. They're going to be much better at the guards than they were last year. And I think the running game is going to be really good. That's a really good running back room. If the receivers step up, and I like the tight ends. I think Kyle Morlock's going to be very good, and I like Landon Thomas, and I thought Jackson West had a good spring. So I think they're going to be okay there. If you get good play, Malik Benson's going to be solid. He'll be good. If you get 3 or 4 or 5 really good receivers to play well, I think that's going to be huge, and I think this offense can have a really big year.
Garrett asks, FSU loses to Georgia Tech in Ireland if blank. And James B., before you answer that, he followed up and said they lose to Georgia Tech in Ireland if the country runs out of Guinness. Is that taken as well?
That's a fair one. Yeah, man, Georgia Tech's going to be a competition. Their quarterback is experienced. He's athletic. Their offense came on late last season. I think that's going to be a pretty good game. If Florida State presses on offense, if they can't get anything going and they start pressing on offense and DJ starts feeling pressure because of, all the talk about him and this being his third school, that's the scenario to me where I can see Florida State getting into some trouble, because I think Georgia Tech's going to have some success on offense. I think they know what they want to do. They can run the ball. They've got a really good athletic quarterback. To me, that's a game where you can't get in a hole and then start pressing and then maybe something bad happens. So I think the offense just has to play good, play solid, and they'll win the game. But if they really start slowly, that would obviously play into Georgia Tech's hand.
Let's talk a little bit about tight ends before we let you go, because Tom brought up Brian Courtney. So you've got probably 4 tight ends competing, or 3 tight ends rather, competing for that number 2 spot, I would say. I'd say we're pretty solid on Kyle Morlock being the number 1 tight end. But beyond that, you've got Landon Thomas, Jackson West, and Brian Courtney. So just kind of what's your thoughts on the tight end room beyond Kyle Morlock?
Yeah, no, Courtney can play too. He's starting to come around. I mean, again, this is a guy that did not play tight end in high school. He played mostly quarterback and some defense. So it's taken him a while to learn how to play, not just bulk up, but learn how to play the position. And then last year they were playing him some at linebacker. They were cross training him at linebacker because thought they were going to be thin at linebacker. So, um, he'll be in the mix. I would say right now, if you had to put an offense out there today, I think it's Kyle Morlock and Jackson West, then Landon Thomas and Brian Courtney is your kind of third and fourth guys. I have a feeling, and I put Landon Thomas higher than a lot of people on my top 40 because I think as the year goes on, I think he's really going to emerge. I think Landon Thomas has a chance to be really special, and I think we'll see signs of that during the season.
Well, Ira, we greatly appreciate your time, man. You rapid fire. I think that might be a Monday Smash record for questions answered, especially in that
Just
first 30 minutes.
Just trying to get answers in before my computer crapped out. Having some technical issues. Hey, real quick, let me just give a shout out to Russ Voorhis. Thanks, Russ, for sponsoring the show, and really appreciate it. And I encourage anybody in that Jacksonville area for sure to give him a call or go to russvoorhis.com. Or if you're in the tri-state area, Florida, Georgia, or Alabama, you can do it as well. He's a longtime Nole, huge FSU supporter, has endowed scholarships and donated to various causes and efforts. And it's just a really good guy. And if you do call him or reach out to him, let him know that you heard about him on the Smash and Warchant. He's a longtime supporter.
All right, Ira, we appreciate you. We're going to let you sign off and bring our Michael Langston in. But first, we're going to go to a quick 15-second commercial from Russ.
Contact Russ Voorhis for an auto quote today.
Welcome back to the Monday Smash. We've got our guy Michael Langston joining us now. Things starting to heat up. As the weather heats up outside, so does recruiting, it seems, Michael. It's going to be a fun and busy June for all of us here at Warchant. I'm looking forward to it. Things kind of ramping up this past weekend. I know there were several visitors, but it seems like it really starts to peak this weekend for you guys.
Yeah, it'll be heavy this weekend. They hosted one visitor, Onus Banny, I want to say, I'll make sure I got his name right. He visited FSU officially, 4-star DB, very high on FSU's radar. Certainly, as people have read and watched, had a lot of riveting things to say about FSU. Said FSU's number one. I'd kind of caution people to start having a ticket parade already, but certainly it was a really good development for FSU. He's very high on what Surdane does with development. I still think there's several visits to go, but I think he said it best. FSU set the standard and the base of all these official visits coming up. And I always personally I kind of like the first visit, if you're the first official visit or the last. I think in the middle kind of gets kind of hairy, but I think when you're the first or you're the last official visit for that kid, it's always I think a good thing where you either set the tone or you finish the job and finish it off the recruitment. So I think certainly they did a lot of positives as far as this visit, that official visit weekend. And then June 7th weekend, I'll have a big preview coming up. I just finished it today, guys. You'll cover a lot of stuff that's coming on. Very key guys. They're officially visiting. Now there's a change in that. TJ Alford is going to visit in season from what I shared with Tex, but there will be eight. There should be eight official visitors, 7 or 8. The guys that kind of headline for me, Zion Grady, 4-star defensive end. That's certainly one that I'm very interested in. 4-star offensive lineman Max Buchanan, who I think FSU is definitely in a positive way as far as that recruit. But there's a battle with Miami and UCF in there, so those two I'm very interested in. Ladarian Clardy is another one out of the Panhandle and the Pensacola area. That's another one that FSU offered late. They really got in it, and that was that offer that he's been kind of coveted and waiting on. So there's a lot of talented guys. I think on the June 7th it'll get kind of interesting because you have the June 7th official visit weekend overlapping with the June 9th elite camp. People can go to the PRB. You can see all the visitors that are already there. I think that's going to be a very strong almost underclassmen type camp, although there will be some top 2025 top guys in there that I think will certainly be names that jump out to people. But we'll get more of those 2025s as we get closer to that June 9th date. So a lot of stuff cranking up. Did the camp, had the first day of their camp yesterday. For those that haven't seen, you can go on the PRB. You can see all my camp observations of, some guys that stood out. I think a few of the guys that really caught my attention. One was tight end / wide receiver Caden Prothrow, 2026 wide receiver. I was kind of questioned, like, is this guy receiver or tight end? But I kind of like what the stuff I've seen of how he gets in and out of his routes. I love what he said, and he had very high praise for FSU. He will also be back for that uh, June 9th elite camp. So certainly getting him in and getting a feel for what the camp experience and what it's like to work with these coaches like Coach Dugans and Coach Norvell, and just being around those guys. I think it was a good starting point for FSU. Certainly, they are one of the top teams without question for Caden. So that's another one. And then the guy I haven't seen before that really was one of my favorite guys throughout the day was linebacker. He said DQ is what he calls his name, but it's Daquan. I'm going to say Forkpa, make sure I got the name right. Change some text with him. He got an offer yesterday from FSU, which I wasn't surprised. I kind of watched him for 5 minutes and moves really well laterally for a linebacker. Tells me he plays linebacker and tight end. They worked him a little too at running back. Be very quick in space. So he'll rack up a lot of tackles, and just his frame was just massive. It looked great. 220 around probably 6'1", but he just kind of fit everything you search for in a linebacker, and he really had a strong day. So those two really jumped out to me. People could read the rest of all the camp observations from day one. Thought it was a really good day for day one because really you don't know. Sometimes it's a hit. Sometimes you usually get two or three, and those around three or four guys that I felt like FSU wise that they could be targets. Down the line. But I think a lot of these camps is evaluation points of a lot of them are young guys, but there's going to be some 2025 guys that they want to evaluate, maybe offer in the summer and kind of expand their boards of whatever position is. So I think certainly is a great start to the camp season. I think the big ones, like I said, you have the big man camps coming up later this week. I'll be back out there on Wednesday. So I think certainly things seem to pick up when you have that big man camp / 7-on-7 tournament at FSU. So I think that's when I think you'll certainly start seeing the needle move as far as some information, intel on a lot of these prospects, and then what we just covered, the official visit. So a lot going on as far as juggling, but I think the exciting thing for me is just the big official week, first big official visit weekend in June. Me and Ben will have a video breakdown of kind of what that's going on, but certainly there's a lot going on. I'll also do another video kind of talking about, over the weekend, kind of where FSU stands with their top guys, whether it's commits or targets. And so we got a lot going on, but I'm ready for this big official visit weekend and camp season this week.
All right, absolutely. We'll go to some questions now. Some guys chiming in on some possibilities and wondering some things about some FSU recruits in the 2025 class. Several names mentioned by David Hall. He says for Michael, so I will not answer this one. Is Zayden Walker still a possibility? If not, would Tavion Wallace, Ty Jackson, and Gavin Nix be a realistic haul at linebacker?
Yeah, I think the second part of the question is more realistic. Tavion Wallace, Ty Jackson, Gavin Nix, all three of those guys are going to be official visitors, and certainly ones. Tavion Wallace we've covered. He's going to officially visit later in June. Those other guys as well. I think Gavin Nix is kind of a guy people forget about, but I think FSU is viewed very highly by him. I think Miami is up there. There's other schools. I think he certainly wants to go through the official visit process. And then the other one, Ty Jackson, we did an interview with him while he was in Nashville with Aslan, and he certainly talked really highly of what Randy does and the relationship. And I didn't realize that they've been on him as long as they have. So I think those are some of the guys. I think there's more. But as far as Zayden Walker, I don't think there's much of a chance as far as FSU. I would consider them a long shot in that recruitment. Hasn't visited in a while, and I think schools like Georgia, Miami, and others. I think mostly Georgia, because that's where I would have him pegged if he was going somewhere. Georgia, South Carolina. Those are two of the teams I think I hear the most with him. But those other linebackers up, certainly. That's certainly a realistic call as far as what FSU's doing. They already have Ethan Pritchard, who will be here this weekend for the June 7th official visit weekend. So they're off to a good start, and if you can land Tavion and finish that one off, I think that really opens up the possibilities of what they can do. Then they can get a little more patient and stingy about what final guy they want to get for that third linebacker.
I love this question for Lee because it gives us an opportunity to shamelessly plug that we had an interview with him earlier today that went up on our YouTube channel. So check it out. A big shout out to Aslan. He was up there in Nashville all week last week at the On3 Elite Series, talking to some of the top prospects about FSU and just their recruitment in general. And one of those guys was Isaiah Gibson. So make sure you check that out on our channel. But Lee asked, guys, is our recent success with defensive ends helping in recruiting elite talent such as Isaiah Gibson?
It helps. It doesn't mean you're going to land them, but it certainly helps. He's committed to USC, but I would say Georgia's the biggest threat to flip, but I think FSU is right there. I've heard kind of a few things like his dad goes to a lot of FSU home games. I don't know if that means Isaiah was there with him, but I do know he's very intrigued about the program. He's very interested about what they're doing. I think the development speaks for itself, and that's certainly pushed their chances of helping them. I want to see more of when he officially visits FSU, whatever that time may be, probably in season. I want to see more of a priority from his end of, hey, this is a place like I'm highly interested. Besides the stuff with the development and just the connection with Coach JP. I mean that stuff is there, but you just want to see more of, and just maybe he's waiting to see that detailed experience. But certainly, I know his family's involved. I know certainly FSU has been heavily involved in that recruitment for a while. So definitely, it's helping. Will it finish the job, Lee? As far as a guy like Isaiah, that's a kind of a wait and see of what they do during the season. And as I said many a times, their product on the field really has helped sell FSU for guys like Isaiah Gibson and others at different positions of keeping that consistent product year after year. I think is a pivotal thing for this staff that they want to accomplish, they want to do, and that's why we see the things the way Norvell does stuff. I was certainly out there for the camp, and you kind of get to experience like you know everyone's wonders like you go through a year's like, is it going to be the same thing or is it going to be a higher, and the standard goes higher each time. I could see just Norvell had a really good you know speech when he first started and ended the camp, and he basically was like, look, I mean, there's a reason we're 13-0. There's a reason our GPA is 3.0 as a team. There's a reason they won the ACC championship, and there's a reason for their success against their top rivals, and two, why they're considered a national power. Is like you have to have guys that buy into everything. Not everyone's fit for FSU. Not every play, not every recruit is FSU. Has that FSU standard. So I thought it was really impressive just to lay it out what their success was, but also, you could have been anywhere today and you went out here and worked here. And I think the main thing with Norvell is to be consistent of what their product is, and I think he's certainly done that. And I was highly impressed by what he had to tell a lot of these campers, even before and after the event.
Now, you mentioned that, and something that stood out to me in the interview that you guys did with the four-star defensive back that visited Onus Conan Banny. And again, check that out on Warchant TV. Hopefully I said that right, Onus. If not, I
I think you got it right.
But I'm just kind of curious because one thing that he mentioned that really stood out to me was Norvell never left his side and throughout the
Yeah.
entire visit. And the way he spoke of that, it's like that's uncharacteristic compared to what he's experienced on these other visits. So can you kind of speak to that? I know it wasn't, a jam-packed visitor list this last weekend,
Yeah.
so that might have allowed him more time to spend with Norvell. But it seems like anytime a recruit comes on campus, they talk about just the time they spend with Norvell. You hear that he's always real. You hear the relationship that they have. Is that like typical for college coaches, or is that something different that Norvell has that other coaches don't?
It's highly irregular for a coach to be around the official visit that long. Usually, at different places, whatever they do with greeting. FSU is a little different. They greet them in the parking lot. They're there, more. We see them when they arrive. He's there. That's unusual. But the more unusual thing is about what he does during the whole official visits, because usually the recruit doesn't see the coach unless there's like a personal one-on-one meeting, or they're doing something like a position. Maybe the coach will sit in and listen to a meeting or something like that. But he's involved in everything. Like when they do academic presentation, he's there, and that means a lot to a lot of these recruits, because it's kind of like they feel like a priority when you do that. And I think he's one of the unique coaches that do that. I know that a lot of different schools do different stuff of trying to have their head coach more involved, but I think they downgrade it and give it to other people to handle that stuff. Where Norvell wants to be more hands on. He wants you to know, like, if there's a question, he's gonna be there to you offer it, and just offer his personality and energy in there. And I think he wants to have his energy always around. So there's never a time where you see these official visits where there's a lull in what they're doing. It's always high energy, high connection, high relationships, and certainly selling their product. Of they want they encourage the players when they're there, and I think Onis talked about that, where he wants them to talk to the players. Like, don't take my word for it. Listen to the players, because the players are going to be real and tell you straight up, like, the good and the bad, and all that stuff. But
Right.
I think the main thing is the connection, the player coaches connection, but also everything he does to recruit, Onus and other guys before the visit, he's the same way when they're there. It's not like there's a change where you don't see as much of him, or his personality changes. I mean, Norvell is the same guy all the time. For people that were wondering, he is that same energized guy. He is that same genuine, straightforward. Like, he'll tell you the good and the bad, and but he prefers the players to do it more so, because it has a better impact on the kids. But overall, yeah, that's something. He's not the first recruit that said that. I've heard that a lot, that he is involved in a lot of the official visit. I'm not going to say they do everything, because a lot of times when these official visits, you'll see the coaches, you'll see the head coach on, like, when they have their host dinner and they go out to dinner. He'll be there where their host is there, and then the coaches are there, and then maybe the position coach. But he's there for just about every different piece that you're doing, and that resonates highly with a lot of these kids, because it makes them feel like, okay, this guy really wants me if he's sitting in and doing all these things, and he's right there by your side. I think certainly, like Onis said, it set the standard and bar, and I think it's going to be difficult for other schools to meet that bar of what he did, because it's going to be hard for head coaches to be that dramatically involved. But that's just Norvell, and that's what makes him unique.
Jacob's got a couple questions about some guys, and he starts with Bo Jackson, who he says is leaning towards Ohio State. And we got some funny comments about Bo Jackson in the chat.
Okay.
A nice name to have if you're going to be an athlete, a 4-star athlete. Now, there's Bo there, as you see. So that is not Auburn Bo Jackson. That is a different Bo Jackson. Just wanted to clarify for you guys. But does Bo Jackson leaning towards Ohio State, according to Jacob, change your thoughts maybe on the FSU Georgia battle with Chroma?
No, because I think FSU's been fading for Chroma, so I want to see what happens this weekend. Even if he even shows up for the festival, I'm interested in that, because he's had several times where he could have visited FSU in the spring. I also feel just a kind of gut feeling that Byron Lewis is kind of the guy that they want the most. And Usman's good, but I'm kind of interested to see what priority level he is if he does visit. What's the connection like? Because early in the spring, probably around January, even December, FSU, I think, was the team to beat, was the favorite. And then it started kind of fading away. I told people, like, the fact that they have Cam Davis, they do similar things because they're both powerful backs. That might have not scared a competition, but just when you have another guy that's already there and then another school doesn't, that's a more of an attraction to other places for a guy like Usman. So I'm interested to see how that goes. As far as Bo Jackson, I don't think that guys like Usman, I don't think are really going to care like who goes there. If they like the school, they're going to favor it. And so I think it's more for FSU is what they can do this weekend, and just his reaction to kind of the pitch of what FSU is. And I'm interested to see how strong that pitch is, and how strong that pitch is received. As far as, okay, where are they at now? Because going into the visit, I think they've kind of faded a little bit in that recruitment. I think Auburn, Georgia certainly have been up there for a guy like Usman. So I'm interested to see if they can get back to that standing they were with him in the early spring, where he was always talking about FSU.
Sorry, guys, I'm distracted by these ads over on the side here. I'm going to
Yeah.
zoom in a little bit. So this is a question I have for you. Oh, they didn't go away. I was hoping they would go away. Sorry, guys. So you see the high school for Byron Lewis, and obviously
Yes.
there's a real big pipeline since Patrick Surtain has come in on the
Yes.
coaching staff. How big is that? How big has that been to add Surtain to the coaching staff, and what kind of impact has it made in that pipeline in particular with American Heritage?
Well, I think first of all, he's been a massive addition just on the development at defensive backs. I mean, when I watched the defensive backs last year, I saw a drastic, change of, skill, and it showed in the draft. Guy like Renardo Green going, I think in the second or third round.
Yeah.
You saw a big jump of Azari Thomas's skill set. Just the overall DBs, Jerry and Jones was phenomenal throughout the year. He really does a phenomenal job of development. He's just a development king as far as the defensive back position. He's played in the highest level. He certainly played college, and certainly is. And then to your question, being at American Heritage, he's been around a lot of coaches, so he knows what coaches are looking for. With a lot of talented kids that have come out of American Heritage, a lot of them gone to FSU, like Brian Burns, Tavares McFadden. They've certainly had their share of talented American Heritage guys, and then now they have a few transfers in Marvin Jones Jr., certainly Earl Little Jr. So his impact, it's helpful. One, it's phenomenal with the development, but it's two, his connections are outstanding. And then he's a very laid back guy that is easily liked when you're around him. It's not just a guy that's cocky, hey, I do this, I do that, or I do the best at development or whatever. He just like, look, he come in and just let him view what you are. And that's kind of the way he's approached this job, and done a phenomenal job. I've told Aslan before, man, if I was him, I'd be going there talking about bonuses and stuff, because he's nailed it on every possible way as far as with the FSU program and development, and even high school recruiting. Got two or three top guys last year in the high school class. You got Charles Lester, Kai Bates, a lot of talented DBs that came in for FSU last year, despite losing out on KJ Bolden the last minute. I mean, there was a really strong high school class. And then I got to go back to, it's like I tell people all the time, it's like high school recruiting is great, like getting talented players is great, but what you do with your roster, to me, is the most impact. When I go out there, when I go to camps, I'm studying what these coaches do and the way the message is being received and coached, and how the kids are implementing the teaching they're getting. And with FSU, you get that across the board. Coach JP doesn't get a lot of credit. He should. He does a great job with defensive ends. I think Randy Shannon is phenomenal when you watch him teach and his development with linebackers, and then Coach Sertain the same way. And you go across the board a lot with a lot of these positions. So I think his impact is twofold of both development with DBs, but also connections, and his ability to connect with, no matter what you are, whether you're high school or portal. He is so good at connecting with people. I think that's one of his strongest attributes.
Another good one from Jacob here, and this is actually maybe the toughest one we've had to answer so far tonight, or you've had to answer. I haven't answered any questions, but Jacob wants to know, and this is tough because I feel like Florida State, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, they're in a good spot with all three of these guys. So he says
Yeah.
if you had to put a crystal ball in for wide receivers for Nell Brown III, Dalen
Phew.
McCutcheon, or Joshua Moore, who would it be? I'm guessing you can only pick one, so that's the tough part.
Oh, Jacob, man, you're putting me on the spot. That's tough, man. It's close for me. I'd say Dalen. Just I feel the best about him. I think Joshua would then be the next, although I think Florida made a strong push when he visited officially last weekend. And then Burnell Brown, I think it's FSU and Ohio State. I still, or FSU and Florida. I still feel that way, even though he did visit Ohio State. I felt that way for a while, and I think FSU is a team to seriously watch out. I think I know that sounds silly because his dad played at Florida, and it sounds good. But that coaching staff, you don't know what's going to be shaken out as far as what they are next year. If they have another tough season, and two, the development with FSU at receivers, I think Burnell loves that. He loves what they're doing and the product. They're one of the top teams in the country, so I think that's what attracts him to a lot of these programs. So I think FSU is a serious threat for all three of those guys. But if I was picking one, I'd probably say a sneaky pick just for Dalen. I think there's a personal connection that he has to the FSU staff that's unique compared to a lot of programs. I think he loves kind of what they do development wise, love what their offense looks like, how he fits into that offense. And I think that really resonates with him and it always sticks with him. And when you're taking two unofficial visits to FSU like he has, Texas is like 10 hours away. I mean, Matt Lucero could tell you how far the drive is. That's his
He's right
home
there.
state.
He says
So
Dalen.
yeah, okay. So when you're going over there, that frequently, like he has FSU, and then you're going to take official visit, and he's coming in on the biggest recruiting weekend they have of the year. Tramel Jones will be there. A lot of top commits will be there. A lot of top players will be there. I think it's a big deal that he's coming in on that weekend. So if I was picking somebody, I would pick him.
All
Of
right, I
course,
like it.
Matt's going to say Dalen. He loves his Texas
He
kids. Get the
wants the
crap out of
DFW kid.
get out of here, Matt. Lives right next to you, man. I'm not even gonna. I know how Matt feels.
And he,
So
he clarifies it's a 13-hour drive, 90-minute flight.
there you
So
go.
thank you for that.
But yeah,
Last call.
Dalen for me. Yeah, Dalen for me.
Okay. Okay. Last call before we close out for questions for Michael. If you guys want to get some questions in, I want to revisit this one, Michael, because I want to know your thoughts.
Uh
Ira said he would not be playing the new college football 25 video game. I said he could come play. Me and Matt are already going to play. So I'm wondering, are you going to be on the sticks too, or what's up?
I will be on the sticks. I'm gonna
Okay.
play. Sorry,
Okay.
Ira. You can go watch the O's play. I'll play the game, man. I'll be on it.
All
By the
right.
way, shout out to your O's. Ira, they're kicking butt. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I'm very excited. I've seen all the different features and the different things it offers. I'm interested to see just how it comes together. But I'm interested to play it. I've already got several buddies that are lining me up. It's like, man, you got to play me live. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Definitely already told them, yeah, I'm getting FSU, so you better get some other team. But they know what's up. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see how it looks.
James B said that he is going to put $200 down on the winner of me and Matt Lasser. So I'm going to put you
Hmm.
on the spot. Who are you picking in that matchup? Are you going with your recruiting guy or are you going with Spice?
I don't know what your either history is and playing
Uh,
games.
okay. That's
But
fair. Fair.
knowing the Spice Man's history, I'm gonna go with
Ooh.
the Spice Man.
All right,
Sorry,
Matt.
Matt.
Matt, what do
Matt,
you think
you
about
have to
that?
show me. You have to show me, Matt. You gotta make me a believer. I'm gonna go with Ben on that.
All right. I like it. I like to hear that.
There you go.
We'll take one more question. This is from Tom, and this he's asking me, Michael. So I'm going to answer it first, and then I'll
Okay.
segue over to you. He says you get too much love, and then he clarifies. He says love you too, Michael, in a later comment. But he
Okay.
says over under 3 5-stars. I'm going to say, oh man, that's tough because I can't pick three, right? It's got to be one or the other. Man, that's tough because I think you factor in the transfer portal, and there's not a lot of 5-stars in the transfer portal
Yeah.
from the On3 rankings. I think there's only one from last year. So I'm going to say under. I think they get 2, Michael.
2. Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's gonna be a push, or I think it's gonna be over. I don't think it's going to be under that 3. I think it's going to be a push, or it's going to be whatever, because you got to remember a lot of these kids, that they do get, they could rise up. I
Right.
feel good about where they sit with Josh Petty. They already have Solomon Thomas. I do feel they eventually sticks with him, and then I think there's several other top guys that are out there that I think they could get, and you get one more. That's definitely already the 3. So I would say push, or maybe if things click right on a visit, I think you could get to that 4 more. I don't think it'll be more than 4, but I do think 3 is very attainable.
Yeah, I think that was a good question because I wanted to say 3, but I had to pick over or under. So I
Okay,
had to. I went with the negative answer there. And Jacob
there
says
you go.
Tavion should be a 5-star, and I think that's someone who could definitely climb up in those rankings.
You could, yeah. I mean, you guys got a lightning round. I'm here for it. Whatever questions you want to throw down, throw it down, man.
Well, we'll let some people get some more questions in, but before we close out, I know you've been doing the recruiting roundtables
Yep.
recently. I've gotten the chance to produce and edit those for you. You had
Yes.
Steve Wilfong and Josh Newberg on there. So, what was kind of the pulse of that? Talking to those guys, obviously two guys who are very locked in with the industry. So, what was kind of your takeaways in your conversation with them?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. When I create these things, I want because a lot of these people know how I feel. Like
Yeah,
how I feel, and like so I dictate a lot of this to more highlight the Steve Wilfongs and Josh Newberg, because I want people to get a national view of how people from a national standpoint view them. And then for Newberg, who was phenomenal, just incredible, one we had last week. He really just touched on it because he's been on the FSU beat. I wanted to get his take just on the viewpoint, because has a lot of sources still that he probably deals with, and I wanted to get kind of the national view of stuff. And I think it was really good. I think Steve was really open about hey, I feel like this is a top 10 class or higher, and there's a lot of things building for this summer that he feels like, hey, they're probably going to get some good news in the summer that it's going to really bolster this class. And you kind of got that same vibe with Josh. And I think it's just very the whole both of them were just very detailed on intel of stuff that I think a lot of people didn't know. But also, I think the biggest takeaway for me was the viewpoint of the way FSU is perceived nationally. And I even asked Josh, like, is there something they need? Is there a missing thing that they need to do, whether it's for recruiting or overall? And he's like, no, just keep doing what you're doing. What they're doing is resonating with kids. We know FSU wasn't dealt the easiest hand when they first started. This group of coaches didn't have connections to the state of Florida outside of Ron and Odell. There wasn't a lot of Florida connections, so they had to show their product by winning. That's how they had to build trust within the state of Florida and Georgia and the surrounding states. So they've done it the earning way. It wasn't like they just showed up and they had a coach like Cristobal or Napier that had been in that state, recruited consistently in that state. They had to show their product to win these guys over, and they've nailed it with the portal. I think Josh gave some really good breakdowns
yeah,
of what they do in the portal was phenomenal. I think it really speaks to. That's why I tell people, like, focus on the hit rate from the portal more than you do who the prospect is, of how many, who's ranked where. Oh, this school's ranked here of all the portal guys. Yeah, but what are they doing with those guys when they get there? Are they productive? Are they game changers? And majority of the guys that FSU adds, they're game changers. They change the game. They're phenomenal. Their development is out of this world. Even guys that were really highly talented, like Keon Coleman, they developed certain things on his game that maybe he didn't know he had when he got before he got there. Like, Keon's never returned punts, and all of a sudden he's returning punts. JP did a phenomenal job working with him, and he was viewed as kind of a guy that's kind of a almost a basketball mentality of just backing people down and jump balls. And he was more than that as far as a receiver, and they brought that out. So I think a lot of what they do development wise really sticks, and that's why I think they kill it in the portal so often. Why they get you know probably one of the most deepest defensive lines that they've had of a lot of portal guys they've added. And I think they just do an incredible job with their hit rate. It's not for me what how many top guys you get. It's about what do you do with those guys when they get there, and they've killed it.
I'm going to combine two questions here, and then we'll
All right.
rapid fire a couple more in here. But
Okay.
Tom asked, he's been active in the chat, and he gave us a shout out. He said, "Best off-season smash yet." Appreciate that, Tom. But
There you go.
he had, so I'm gonna combine here. So I'll let you answer this, and then I'm gonna add another question in. But he says, real quick, Michael, we're going to get that D lineman from my hometown Port Charlotte. I forget his name. I think that's Myron Charles that he's talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Then I wanted to combine that with Tony's question because he asked it a couple times. Big disconnect between the defensive line recruiting and the high school ranks. We do well with the portal, but high school has been way behind. He says it feels like this year could be a year that changes that, though, right, Michael?
Yeah, Tony, you should get on there and read a lot of our hot boards this year. It's a little different feeling. I'm not going to promise they're going to fix everything and get as many guys as you want, but I do think there's a very realistic shot with a lot of top guys. Myron Charles, I feel good about where FSU sits. Kevin Wynn's another one. FSU Georgia battle there, but I think FSU personality wise and from a relationship standpoint, I think FSU's done the best job with a guy like Kevin Wynn. He's a 4-star defense tackle, and then you have other guys like Jalen Wiggins, who's a local kid that I think is kind of, he reminds me of just what he does to Dennis Briggs. Can do like he can play inside or you can play him outside. I think he's more of a defensive end, but there's a lot of good things there. There's a lot of, I see a lot more like flow and momentum with defensive tackle recruiting that I saw in the last 2 or 3 years. So they've definitely made some movement with guys. Now they do have to land these guys, and that's the big thing that they haven't done in years, and that's what you want to see, and that's my focus. But from a target standpoint of how they're developing with these recruitments, I think it's much different than what I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. So I think even defensive end, we talked about a lot of the guys that, you got guys like Zion Grady, and then I mentioned Jalen Wiggins is another one. I mean, I think the way people view FSU from those positions is just different than what I've seen in that 2 or 3 year span. So now they have to finish it and finish the drill and finish the job. As if you're out there at FSU's practice, the one thing you always hear from Odell is finish, and that's kind of what I think they hope they do. And like I've said, they position themselves pretty well to pull some of these guys.
Guys, we can go all night talking about recruiting, but we've unfortunately reached our time limit here on the Monday Smash. Big thanks to our sponsor, State Farm agent Russ Forhis. Again, check him out, russforhis.com, serving not only Florida, but Georgia and Alabama as well. He's got physical locations in Jacksonville Beach and Orange Park as well. Maybe we can get some of those questions that came in later coming up, because I know me and Michael will be spending a lot of time with each other over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Definitely like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and appreciate all of you who tuned in here to Monday Smash. For Ira and Michael, I'm Ben. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next